Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a mystery we all kind of share but rarely talk about. You know that exhausting, judgmental second voice that pops up in your head literally the second you walk away from a social interaction? Yeah, that one. We're going to figure out exactly why this inner heckler is there, and more importantly, how to finally quiet it down.
Let me ask you something, and be totally honest here. Have you ever been in the middle of a perfectly normal conversation, maybe at a party or just chatting with a coworker, said something just a tiny bit out of place, and immediately started replaying it in your head? Like you're dissecting your own sentence, analyzing your tone, all while the other person is literally still talking to you? Or, hey, what about that cringy comment you made during a high-pressure job interview 3 entire years ago? You know the exact fluorescent lighting in the room, the awkward pause after you spoke, and it still plays on a constant loop in your mind when you're just trying to fall asleep at 2 a.m. If you do this, I promise you, you are not alone. It feels like you're stuck in a front row seat to a mental movie of your absolute greatest social misses, and you just cannot hit pause. It is so absolutely exhausting.
Okay, let's dive into this. The very first thing to understand is that having this inner heckler is not a personal flaw. Psychologists actually have a name for this whole shebang. It's called post-event rumination. It's this deeply ingrained human instinct that causes a relentless mental loop of analysis, and it is heavily linked to social anxiety and perfectionism. Think of it like a sports commentator playing back a fumble in ultra slow motion from like 5 different camera angles trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. And, for some people, this isn't just a quirky habit. It manifests as a serious mental compulsion, very similar to what people experience with pure O or rumination OCD. Your brain is actively pushing you to review your interactions over and over again, scanning the memory just to be completely 100% sure you didn't say the wrong thing or offend someone. And this brilliantly illustrates the evolutionary root of the problem. It's basically our brain's terrible, totally outdated timing. Thousands of years ago, belonging to a group meant literal ancient survival. Your brain learned to obsessively analyze social interactions because a single misstep back then could mean being exiled from your tribe. And being exiled, well, that meant you were probably going to be eaten by a tiger. A social misstep was a literal death sentence. But look at our modern reality. Today, that exact same mechanism is still running in the background, firing on all cylinders. But instead of protecting you from a real-life tiger waiting in the bushes, it activates to protect you from, what, an awkward smile in the hallway, a minor typo in a company-wide Slack message? Because of this evolutionary mismatch, if you have really high standards for yourself, your unique operating system gets easily tricked into panicking. Let's say you're at a crowded coffee shop. The barista hands you your latte and cheerfully says, "Enjoy your drink." And you instinctively reply, "You too." We've all been there, right? You just stumbled on a single, harmless phrase, but your brain treats it like a 5-alarm fire. It reacts to a minor drop in social grace as if it were a life-or-death crisis, immediately flooding your body with cortisol. Actually, when you step back and look at the absurdity of it, it's kind of funny. But in the moment, no way. That hot rush of panic and embarrassment is very real and just super overwhelming. It's honestly like wearing heavy armor to a casual dinner. This mental editing, this constant, exhausting vigilance, it was once a brilliant adaptation for human survival in a deeply dangerous, wild world. But man, it is incredibly heavy to carry into everyday, totally safe social situations with your friends, your family, or your colleagues. You are essentially showing up to a friendly gathering, braced for battle, defending yourself against threats that simply don't exist anymore. Now, what's really interesting about this is how this constant analysis just totally drains our emotional reserves. You can become so busy observing, grading, and correcting your feelings that you completely forget to actually feel them. It's beautifully compared to a scientist who knows the exact chemical compounds of a cake, the flour, the sugar, the baking powder ratios, but has never actually taken a bite and tasted its sweetness. Over time, living entirely up in your head like this, constantly reviewing your own social performance, it leads to this emotional numbness. You end up just watching your life from the sidelines instead of fully participating in it. So, the big question: how do we fix this? How do we finally take that heavy armor off? Well, it requires a fundamental paradigm shift. Our goal isn't to build a better mirror so we can judge ourselves more harshly and fix every little conversational flaw. That is a complete trap. Instead, the goal is to build a better window. We want to see the world and our natural place in it more clearly. We need to consciously shift our energy away from harsh judgment and toward gentle observation. To help us make that shift, we have a highly practical, gentle toolkit designed to interrupt the anxious mind's endless replay loop and help you take back your mental freedom. The strategy breaks down into 4 really accessible steps. Label the loop,
Schedule a check-in, use sensory grounding, and intentionally act imperfectly.
Let's start with the first two. First, try labeling the behavior the exact moment it starts. When you're sitting at your desk and you feel that mental replay of yesterday's staff meeting firing up, literally say out loud to yourself, okay, I'm ruminating again. Just naming the feeling instantly separates you from it. You go from being trapped inside the storm to observing it from the outside, which immediately gives you a moment of control. Second, schedule a check-in. Tell your anxious brain, hey, I hear you, and we will absolutely review this conversation for 5 minutes, but we are going to do it at 5 p.m. Paradoxically, once you give your brain formal permission to obsess, but strictly on your own scheduled terms, it almost always completely loses interest by the time 5 p.m. actually rolls around. Let's move on and see how this builds into the physical realm with sensory grounding. When that rumination loop starts spinning totally out of control, I want you to focus intensely on raw physical data. Notice the firm feeling of your feet resting flat on the floor. Get up, go to the kitchen, and hold the sharp, cold intensity of an ice cube right in your palm. Or wrap your fingers tightly around a soothing, warm mug of tea. Really feel that heat radiating into your skin. By forcing your attention entirely onto these immediate, undeniable physical sensations, you literally short-circuit the anxiety loop. Your brain simply cannot obsessively analyze the past when it is fully anchored in the raw physical reality of the present moment.
Finally, we have the radical act of being good enough. Now, this one is tough, but it is incredibly effective. I want you to intentionally do something imperfectly today. Send a quick text message with a harmless typo in it and force yourself not to correct it. Or leave a single unwashed coffee mug in the sink overnight. Seriously. By doing this, you are physically teaching your nervous system a crucial lesson. You're proving to it through real action that perfection is not a requirement for safety. It's not a requirement to be respected, and it is certainly not a requirement to be worthy of love.
So, the crucial point is this: your deep, analytical mind is not a flaw. You are absolutely not broken. That exact same mental machinery that causes you to overthink and ruminate, that is precisely what gives you a profound gift of empathy. It gives you this incredible capacity for insight, a deep consideration for other people's feelings that a lot of other people might completely miss. Healing from the social heckler doesn't mean shutting off your brain or becoming a careless person. It simply means learning to use that brilliant, sensitive mind to think about yourself with a little more kindness.
I want to leave you with a really powerful, provocative thought to carry with you today. Ask yourself this: what if your mind isn't a problem to solve, but a person to experience? Let that shift your perspective for a second. The next time that social heckler speaks up about a stumbled word or an awkward wave, try showing it just a little bit of compassion. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this explainer, and keep learning.